The way you do it is you find out who someone's manager is or whoever owns the resource, and you say, hey, these 6, 8, 12, 40 people have access to this. Should they? And then our product walks them through that. So through, GUI interface, and it just says, yeah, that person should have access, that one should not, etc.
Mm.
We've done it millions of times. We've done it 4.1 million times. We got companies who run through this now 900,000 roles through the engine. It's a required practice.
Welcome to the Pulse Collective podcast. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the PCP, otherwise known as the Pulse Collective podcast. I'm your host, Shahrukh Ansari. The PCP is where we feature business leaders all across Canada and the United States. We bring them on board and feature their stories and any advice that they've learned along the way when it comes to sales, marketing, the future of AI, and just anything to do with business as a whole. I'm super excited today because I'm actually featuring Garret Grajek, who is the president and CEO over at YouAttest. Garret, thanks so much for being here. I would want to actually allow you to do your own introduction, and then we'll take it from there. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Garret Grajek. Guys, looking at your profile, I did live up in Canada for a while up in Toronto when I worked for IBM up there. But I went to school down in Texas and immediately got into computers and got a degree down there and then programmed for everyone down from IBM and a whole bunch of others. Eventually, the career led me to starting my own companies around authentication, SSO, and now identity governance. Okay. So I got 15 patents in topics such as single sign-on, two-factor, blockchain, and identity trust scores. Real big on zero trust, real big on governance, real big on identity fidelity and knowing who we have let in. That all led me up to building up YouAttest. And that's what, I'm doing now.
Very cool. So we have some overlap in terms of our stories. How long ago was it when you were up in Canada?
Hell, that was before my kids. So that was 20 years ago. So yep, up in there in the in Wyandotte in Toronto. You know where that is?
Nice. Yeah, we have our the main IBM offices now are in a city called Markham. So we have like a huge software lab out there. The one in Toronto now has turned into like a consulting kind of building right beside the CN Tower. They have like a little building over there now. So
Yeah, I was at the Don Mills Center back then. So that was yeah.
okay. That's
And
before
then
my
they
time.
they flipped that to someone I think someone that builds chips or fabs or something.
Okay. Yeah, I think they might have integrated everything. So we have one now, which is like, I want to say a 45-minute drive out from Toronto. That's where they do all the chips and the lab work and everything. That's the software lab now. But no, it's really cool. I'm curious now. So you mentioned after all that, you're now the CEO over at YouAttest. So what do you guys do? What's your clientele? What
Perfect.
service do you provide?
So having solved the two-factor problem, and that's what I was doing over at Secure Auth, I then went over to Silence, and they got me really intrigued into AI. They really did. I built 9 models there around identity to help understand the trust of a user that's currently logged on. And while that was wrapping up and they got bought by BlackBerry, I got pinged by people that I worked with before over at Secure Auth. They went over to Okta and said, "Hey, Garrett, there's one thing that is not being addressed in identity in any rapid and deployable way. It is the attestation of identity rights." And I'm like, most people on the call right now are like, "Yeah, well, you got me. I don't know what that is." The attestation identity rights means who have you given access to? Not authentication, but really okay, great. So you're holding all this, PHI, you're a healthcare company. You got, all this data that everyone wants to steal and ransomware you on. Okay, who have you given access to? And what mechanism do you do to actually determine that? And that's what we built at UAttest. We automated the process of reaching into the existing identity stores and creating a workable, repeatable workflow that enterprises can attest. Say, yeah. And the way you do it is you find out who someone's manager is or whoever owns the resource, and you say, hey, these 6, 8, 12, 40 people have access to this. Should they? And then our product walks them through that. So through, GUI interface, and it just says, yeah, that person should have access, that one should not, etc. And we've done it millions of times. We've done it 4.1 million times. We got companies who run through this now, 900,000 roles through the engine. It's a required it's a required practice, and you name the industry. I mean, it's a required practice in financials, it's a required practice in healthcare, it's a required practice now in defense, it's a required in schools because they hold PHI. All these should be doing, and a majority of companies are still doing it manually, and they're not doing it that well.
Very cool. I've never heard of that before, actually. Like, I was also pretty close to the security space, but everything was always manual when it came to that. Like, everybody, when it
Yeah,
comes to deciding people's access, if they'll have privilege or not, it was a decision made by somebody, and then it would just go down the chain. Is it like policy based? Like, how exactly do you?
but it stems from policy. It stems from policy. In most, and well, given that the enterprise is like a name in healthcare, you're under HIPAA, you're under usually doing high trust if you're doing business with insurance companies. It states in those regulations and those guidances that you will review access regularly and in a quantified and reportable way, which means you have to show the report if you're audited, to all the data and the users who have access to the data for the PHI. And that means that it's not a one shot and run. You have to say, great, I've set up my users, I give it access because of the way I feel they should have access. But 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now, especially around admin accounts, you have a step. You have a practice and a procedure around re-auditing, recertifying is the industry's terminology, recertifying access to those users. And it's called access recertification. It's a practice that all these industries that I mentioned have to be practicing, and there are the tools available to them are usually the really, really, basic email and spreadsheets, or the really complicated offerings offered by the AGA, the other IGA companies that are pretty expensive to deploy. So we built this thing from scratch. And what I did is I took an auditor and I took a CIO and I had them just talk to each other. Guys, what do you do? What's the process? And then we built a workflow around that to be as simple and as brain dead as possible. The tool's built for GRC people, not for programmers. It's built for people without coding abilities.
Very cool. Very cool. Honestly, I can say firsthand from an enterprise level, I can see a lot of use in that. When I was dating back, when I was on my security side, I remember there was a saying internally that hackers are no longer breaking in to software. They're actually logging in to software. And a lot of it
Nice,
stemmed from like
nice.
privilege and just like having access. And people that had
Mm,
access that shouldn't have it were sharing those credentials with people that weren't. A lot of times companies, your own employees were the biggest risk, depending on who
yeah,
actually has access or not. So for me, this is
insider
right at home.
insider threat is real. And there's a concept that people should realize. It's called both privilege creep, that you get a user and it just naturally augments. That natural, oh, I need this access. And privilege drift. That's a new concept that this is what he was given, his role, but because people kept adding, now he's got all these access rights. And what is the mechanism? And that's not for me to answer. That's for everyone out there that's a CISO in that position. What is your mechanism to draw back those privileges? And that's why the quantifiable practice, not created by me, created by the security gurus, and listed straight out in NIST CSF, cybersecurity framework, originally 1.1, now 2.0, and PRAA05, says straight out best practice is to be reviewing privileges on a regular basis especially your admin privileges.
Yeah, I know. No, I think this is very cool. And I feel like for anybody that's listening to this, especially if you're newer to the security space, I understand it's a very complex area, but there's a lot, especially with the emergence of AI and just the future of everything. Security continues to be the biggest thing on the top of most executives' minds, and that actually I feel like drives the fear of people adopting AI as well, is the security associated with it. So I think this transitions perfectly into the next phase of our conversation. And I wanted to really talk about artificial intelligence, this buzzword that everybody's hearing about. And some people are excited about it, they're incorporating it. Other people are really fearful and like hesitant because, again, those security risks, there is jobs that are being displaced. Like they really don't see how they can incorporate it because in our industries, over the course of decades, companies have fallen in love with one way of doing things. And a lot of times it's difficult to really potentially think of a new way of doing that. So I'm curious your take when it comes to AI and the future of SaaS or just technology as a whole. How do you see it playing a role when it comes to sales and marketing, for example? How do you see that evolving?
Great. And lots to talk about there. First of all, AI is wonderful. I mean, we all should love it. I mean, it's really fun. It's great. It's I don't I'm real big on and there's certain many ways to talk about this. I'm really big on using AI for predictive analysis in identity. And I don't even think we've started. We're like 1 inch out of the goal line there, guys. Okay. What I mean is 20 years from now, 10 years from now, we will be amazed that we transacted as much as we have with most systems. The last time they evaluated the user was at the authentication level. I mean, that's just, to me, mind boggling. And I'm not, I don't, one thing wrong in our industry is certain concepts could be really good, but then it comes a buzzword. And that's where I look at zero trust, right? Zero trust is, oh yeah, those are those marketing guys. No, it's not. It was a concept created by Google that said, hey, we're creating this whole cloud system. And they were like, is that going to be secure? And they came up with to go because they were saying, if you create a cloud system, if you're not going to have a network authentication, you're going to have network protocols, are you going to be able to do this? They called it Beyond Trust. Okay. And that was their Beyond Corp, actually, was Beyond Corp. And they said, no, we can do this because what we're going to do is at every state change of the dialogue, we will re authenticate, basically reauthorize. And that's what we need to do in our systems. We have to say, great, you know, we are authenticated. All authentication is, y'all, all authentication is establishing an identity to a session ticket. That's the way we should see that. Just establish. Doesn't mean it's really the user, and it sure to hell doesn't mean we should give that guy that privileges. All it means is we have something to start with. And then every step of the equation, it should say, okay, the ID that's been established is now trying to do this. Is that rational? Right? Like the famous, Target hack that took terabytes of data out and they started in the HVAC. Is it rational that an ID should take all this financial data out? Probably not. That's what zero trust is. And the whole concept that I'm really into is let's use GRC, that's the acronym myself here, governance risk and compliance, to come up with an identity trust score of how much we really trust this user. And then you enforce that. You enforce that down the way to say, hold it, for this type of data to be released. One sec. For this type of data, say I'm a pharmaceutical, which are big users of this product. If I'm a pharmaceutical, this is the IP that this company lives off of. The level of trust of a user to touch this data has to be 90 above. And that's where we take all this system. We take how we authenticate it. Sure, that's wonderful. But also how much we trust this user based on its roles and what it's trying to do. What were its actions, all that. And then at real time in a zero trust model, we make a decision that befits the data and befits the user. And there's a new protocol out there, which I'm really excited about. It's called CAEP, Continuous Authentication Event Protocol. It's a continuous authentication event protocol. And what that does is it says that we will feed information into, just think of a funnel, just think of a wonderful pipeline. We feed information in the pipeline, and then the processes make decisions that always go down. So where did that come from for AI? Well, guys, we're not going to have, Bob pick up a phone and tell that session is this. There's got to be things like AI-based trust scores into there. And that's where I think AI is fantastic. And it's like that is machine learning. And then we get into, the LLMs, which are wonderful and all that kind of stuff. But I see there's lots of different types of AI can be used in the equation of both security and afterwards.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. I feel like for people that aren't as technical that are watching this, even from like a grander scheme, like these are also very like these are robust workflows that at the end of the day, AI will make it easier for us to identify these things, and it's not going to make it more difficult. So I think the sweet spot we have in the middle is like there's a fine line between automating, leveraging AI to our benefit, and also just completely eliminating any sense of using our own heads in the process. So I feel like there's a fine line between the two. What I do want to get into is talking a little bit about your business as a whole. Like, what are you seeing right now is working really well for you guys over at YouAttest, which potentially for other younger companies that are coming into this space, they can maybe take a couple of tips and tricks from you, whether that's from your marketing side. Where are you seeing the most success in terms of your outreach, in terms of people that are reaching out to you? Is it through webinars? Is it through in-person networking events? Is it through emails, cold calling? Like, where do you see kind of the brunt of your success from that side?
Yeah, I like where you took that because this company was formed during COVID. So it became very network based. A lot of emails, a lot of phones, and a lot of webinars. And we did a lot of webinars. And it was kind of fun to see it mature into more of a "Hey, let's go talk and meet people, kind of things. And I think that's required not for it. We could still do the individual sales, remotely, but that's not where the product going. That's not where, I want it to go because the growth of this company is based on its partnerships with the channel, of course. People resell it, and we're really interested in working with more and more managed service providers who use this and make it into a service. And that is a let's go meet people, let's talk, let's gain trust because they're running their business off of you. So that has been the maturity model of the company. But yeah, it was founded on email and a lot of webinars.
Like, are you finding for a lot of businesses that are just starting off and they don't have the maturity that you have now in terms of the network that you've been able to build at this point? They don't have the like, even if they run a webinar, nobody's really registering for them. So just dating back to that point, what would be your best, I guess, advice for younger companies
I
coming into the
uh,
space?
the whole Ogilvy, I mean, from Chicago, and Ogilvy was from Chicago. The old Ogilvy thing is, how long can you make your text? When advertising was all text, right? And he goes, I can make you, read a 900-page book. And he goes, no, you can't. He goes, yeah, I can. This book is all about your name, right? And that's what I do believe startup companies have to do. They have to laser shot their problem, and then they can get people on there. If somebody's struggling with something, like we just came up with a better way to audit your SharePoint. Okay. So I mean, basically straight out, how is auditing your SharePoint going? Okay. And if you find the right target, those people will come on your webinar and those people will come on your, respond to your emails. But you have to be, laser focused, not are you having governance risk and compliance problems? I mean, the guy gets 9,000 emails that way, But if you're saying, hold it, are you struggling with SharePoint audits for your HIPAA compliance? You know? That way you can target people who are struggling in your space, and then you deliver. I'm sure, one thing I know about IT people, most IT people are not only smart, but they're also pretty sincere. you know? They actually do have something that they created that can meet certain things that larger and whatever, and larger companies get larger because they wind up buying the smaller ones, you know, because they're solving something. So I think it is possible to have webinars. I think it is possible to have emails, and I am about to have LinkedIn region if you can succinctly state what you are better at than any other company in the world on, and then, show it. That's what a webinar does, and you say, "Hey, I have a better way to do SharePoint, auditing." Great. So your webinar, you have, people who are skeptical or not, they come on, you talk about it a little, you actually show what you do, and there you go. Voila. And that's how I feel about our industry, that it is possible to reach out remotely. We just have to have content, which most people do a decent job, but not that really awful demo that gets really wonky, but, show the value, show what the problem is, and go that way. I don't
It's
know.
all about relevance. Like you hit the nail on the head. There's
Yes.
so many people that will spam 1,000 emails a day. How is your security policy writing process? Like, how can we help with
Yeah.
it? That type of thing. And it's like they've gotten 900 emails of those just in the last week, and it's very difficult to differentiate yourself. So you hit the nail on the head. I'm actually one of the, I want to say, the minority at this point who is so strong in believing in email over almost every other form of outreach at this point, just because it's the one piece that you can actually control the messaging completely from the beginning to the end. And as long as it's value driven from the front. So for example, there's like when I used to do even like a bunch of email campaigns at IBM, we were selling security, but I wouldn't ever be like, this is what, and for people that aren't familiar with the software, this is what QRadar does. That was our threat detection software at that time. We're not telling people this is what they do. As opposed to that, we're going to be like, hey, like, what are you guys doing when it comes to threat detection? Would you be open to a 15-minute free security consult? Like, would you be against that? The amount of responses you get off of just hearing either the word free or just free value on an initial outreach, it literally pours people in. They're at least willing to hear you out. You're not selling them anything. And at that point, it goes back to what you said, the webinars, the networking. You're building those relationships where at an enterprise level, those will those will weigh out in the long run. Like that, when I used to be in sales, that was my entire process from end to end, is just getting as many people onto calls, talking to them, not selling them a thing. And typically 6 to 12 months later, they're thinking about you if they actually need a solution. That's just typically how it works. So no, I
That
I, I appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, and I like what you said. There is that's one thing about, the media. I mean, you can control what you're saying. I mean, you're showing an email, you're controlling it when you do a webinar, you're controlling it when you're doing your LinkedIn posts or whatever. Just, I I I think I just went to like an investor event yesterday, and there was some real good points made by the investors. They said what they needed. They go, one, tell us why the world needs you, and that's what you can do in your emails and your in the webinars, right? And second of all, show some passion about what you're doing, and that could be expressed in email. I certainly can express in the webinar. Saying, hey, like in the thing about user access review. Sure, it's a wonky topic, but it does do things like, I don't know, five has been not giving intentionally, but they've been having their source code stealed for the last 2.5 years from by the Chinese. That was documented and not to pick on F5, Juniper had the same problem. You know, Users were in there for years, right? And that's what a user access review does. It helps you understand not just the humans, but the NHI accounts and what access they have. That's the kind of passion, people need to bring out about the products. That hey, there's a reason people should have your product. It's not just compliance in my case, it's real security.
Yep. And honestly, in extension to that too, I think a lot of young entrepreneurs or just newer companies coming into this space, a lot of times we fall into the trap of building a solution before actually knowing what the problem really is and speaking to your target market. A lot of times those initial conversations for younger companies, you're actually learning how to build your solution based upon what your ideal customer is telling you. So if they're telling you this is a problem, you actually end up tweaking your solution to meet that requirement as opposed to the other way around. And
I
that's the best
in
piece of
learning how to
advice.
make sure you can dialogue it. Like, when I
Yeah.
started this thing, I got a couple of more certifications. I got my CGEIT and my CISM. The CGEIT is Certified Governance Enterprise IT. Basically give me the terminology that, my audience needs me to speak. I mean, not only do I need to speak it, but if I don't speak in the right terminology, that they don't think I know what
Yeah,
the
you
hell
have to
I'm
speak
talking
their
about.
language, of course.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm curious. So you obviously you've been around for a while. Like how now for you attest, do you just being the leader, where do you see yourself driving the business 6 to 12 months from now? Because
I
it's
mean, this is the way I look at it. We built the product. It was it's it's working. I've scaled the heck out of it at some companies. I mean, big retail companies, big healthcare companies, big insurance companies. The way I see the world going, and man, 2025 is in 2026 will be just like 2025. Is people don't want to hire an IT. They want to outsource. So that's why I'm delivering this solution now to the managed service providers and the consultants. So they can, one of their FTEs can learn this and not just do it once at one company, but do it dozens of times, hundreds of times. Talking to one company, they have 10,000 customers, and they didn't say my product was right for all of them, but it said, "Hey, this is probably good enough. This is the perfect product for about 1,000 to 1,500." That's what YouAttest is about. It's about a product that's built, and then what we've done is we added that RBAC layer, so one FTE can manage the reviews of multiple customers and then delegate out the whole 9 yards. And then what we did is change our pricing for these guys because they never know how many customers they're gonna have, and make it a pay-as-you-go model. So that's what I see the future. I mean, we're always going to be doing, more features on user active views, more workflow. We have patented AI in it, and I see that being more and more used. But I really seen a big change is that these are going to be taken over by consultants and by outsourced the MSP. And they're not MSPs right now are not actively in GRC, but they're always trying to expand, and they're always open to conversations, and that's what we are having now with them.
cool. Very cool. I wanna take one more leap into a different topic before we kind of wrap up here. But I want to talk about sales now, just from a sales background. This is my favorite topic here because that's where I spent a majority of my career. But I'm seeing a real evolution now in terms of sales, and a lot of people who, marketing aside, now your sales reps also, just their follow-up processes and actually hopping on sales calls and actually articulating what your value proposition is, it's completely different than it was 5 years ago. So I'll give you an example. Like for us, even internally at our consulting practice, we would have, for example, our marketing from our meta ads or whatever the case may be, they would get a lead in, our sales rep would see that. They would basically respond to that email. They'd pick up the phone, call them, try to book an appointment with them. The appointment would get scheduled. Our sales rep would hop onto that call, have a discovery call, go from a discovery call to like a demo call to a sales call, and you're kind of hand holding people throughout the process. What's happened over time, you can completely disagree with me if you see a different opinion on this, is I'm noticing a lot more people go on websites and they don't want to talk to a sales rep anymore. They want to actually do their own information, research, digging. And once they're ready, that's when they want to involve somebody else. A lot of people, for example, if you go on, I don't know, Best Buy, like you're trying to buy a new TV, most simplest example we can give. Now imagine if there was a sales rep that was live engaging you during the process of you just doing some research. You probably wouldn't appreciate that. But once you actually find the TV that you're looking for, and you might be like, hey, this is within my budget, these are the specs I'm looking for, let me talk to somebody to maybe like give me the last bit of information and make that decision. That is actually the direction we've headed in. So now our entire funnel, even on our landing pages, we're not sales people facing. So everybody actually automates. So if we get a lead, they're actually doing the entire process from generating the lead. It'll be essentially AI will engage those leads within a short period of time, 5 to 10 minutes. They're engaged, all the positive responses come in. Once those people actually book a call into our calendar, once again, automatically, at this point, they still haven't even contacted a human being. But once they've booked that call into our calendar, now we have a human being that is going to speak with them and obviously take them and handhold them to the end of the sales cycle. But people are more or less not scared that a sales guy is selling them from step number one in that process. So I'm curious how your process looks right now and how do you see your process also evolving over time?
Yeah, I mean, we've worked a lot, many iterations, thousands of hours on the product side of the process. I can see some automation being need to be done on our sales process. Right now, we're very, I wouldn't say old school because we're automated now. We're taking in leads and we get certainly categorize them and work them that way. But we do have the whole let's first just do a discovery call and then let's understand where we do. We usually run a demo because we're so proud of the product on the first discovery call. Okay. So I think, some of the stuff around, hey, lead to dialogue stuff probably could be tightened up.
Like response to dialogue of like a
Yeah.
lead.
Yeah. 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 We're not, we're still pretty manual in that process. So,
I think a lot of
there's a,
sales, you're not alone. Like there's so many sales. Trust, I was on that team where I was daunted because I'd have a list of 100 people that I have to reply to on a given day. And like, there's just so many other things on your calendar that you don't realize, I need to respond to these people within literally 10 minutes, or typically the conversion to an appointment goes down by almost 80 to 85%. It's an actual industry stat. So a lot of people are changing. I think AI is going to play a really big role with that. I want to wrap up here, Garrett. Out of respect for your time too, I appreciate you taking some time to come on today, but I really just want to hop into one final question for the younger audience, young entrepreneurs. You've, of course, been very seasoned in this industry, just people that are now coming in after COVID. Like, it feels like a lifetime ago, but it's only been 5 years at this point. But after COVID, the industry is completely different. For a 20 to 25-year-old coming into this space now, what is either the best piece of advice that you got from a mentor just coming to this point, or what's the best piece of advice you would give them, or even just your 20-year-old self?
I would say the one differentiator I see in the startups or whatever is, and it should be obvious, but it's not. What kind of sales experience do they have? Okay. And I don't. And I did not mean, well, God, they have to go be a sales guy for Optiv or something. No, in the role you're at the work, see if they have a SE position, sales engineer position, right? Or deployment engineer position that you're customer facing. And that will change the way you see products. It just put a period right there. They'll say change the way you see products. Okay. From, you think you know what the product does. Well, you probably do, but you're not 100% there unless you talk to the customers. Unless you understand how they use your products, you don't understand how they use the products, and that will change the way you dialogue to it, and it'll change the way you create products. Because in the back of your mind, you got all those, but Garrett, this is how we use it moments. Okay. And that's, I would say, crucial to founders is do take the day jobs, take the full-time jobs and do some customer interfacing and make sure you are doing customer interfacing. I think having SE position is invaluable. Okay. You can do the sales role or whatever, and nothing wrong with that. And then you understand more about contracts and the actual, negotiation of pricing, which of course is whatever. But as your company goes, you'll probably have a sales guy that will handle that. But you always need to understand how your product actually meets the market and the customer demands. And that's why I find that invaluable.
That's very cool. That's actually, I think, the first time that somebody's given that piece of advice. So that's very cool. Garrett,
I yeah.
just to wrap up, where can everybody find you online? If you have a social media presence, a website, where can everyone?
Yeah, the best way is LinkedIn. I'm monitoring my LinkedIn. There's only one Garret Grajek, for better or for worse. I remember when LinkedIn came out, it's like, "Well, see, it's good to have a unique name. Well, your name's hard to spell, mine everyone misspells, right?" But at least once you get it down and you type it in, then there's only one of you, you know?
I saw on your LinkedIn, I think the hyperlink said the authentication guy or something like that.
The auth guy.
The
Yeah, because
auth
I
guy.
created a secure auth, and I have, like, 11 patents in authentication. So
That's awesome.
it's the auth guy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Garrett, it's been an
Yeah, or you
absolute
can just
pleasure.
write me at CEO@youattest.com.
Awesome. What we will do right after this, I will be sure to include all of those links into the description. So whenever this is posted, be sure to check out YouAttest online and connect with Garrett if you have any questions when it comes to any of the topics we discussed today. He's obviously a professional and has been in this space for a while. So thank you everybody for watching. And Garrett, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. That was great. Loved it.
Take care. Bye.